Welcome everybody to our session. 1 minute late, but still here we are opening our doors. And welcome to our session on collective network mapping. So we invite you to get comfortable setting in, turning on the camera. If you feel like changing your name, you can also quickly write a welcome message in the chat as we are about to throw our little party today, which is the event at the Network Festival, our tech corner. And just to already give you a little teaser, will be collective network mapping, and the people you can see on this slide are going to share their work, their insights in it. We're giving it a few seconds. Oh, happy that you found your way here. Feel free to say hi in the chat. As we will start our session today. And I wholeheartedly welcome you to our session on collective network mapping. So I'm not alone. With me is Carolina, who will be co-hosting this session with me and also support in the background. So if there are any questions you have throughout the event, you can just let us know, ping us in the chat. And then I'm also going to introduce the agenda in a bit. So you can find it in the chat. What is going to expect us today is first a joint arrival, and there will be one survey and one little grounding exercise that we are going to do before then going into the speaker presentations, which is 30 minutes. And I will explain more when we get there, because after you will have the chance to actually go into breakouts with the speakers. And there will be 2 rounds of breakouts where you will have around probably a bit less than 15 minutes, but then dive deeper into the conversation with the speakers of your choice. And then after this, there will be a little exercise again and a joint discussion on collective network mapping before having a wrap up and what's to come. And throughout the entire event, we really invite you to engage with your peers, engage with us, ask questions, write in the chat. You can also write personal messages also throughout and after breakouts when you want to stay connected, because this is really a shared space that we have for all of us to engage with the topic of collective network mapping or whatever else is emerging around that topic. And with this, oh, I just saw, I wrote the, copy pasted the agenda to all of you in the waiting room. Let me share it again with everybody. So that's the agenda. And we are going to do a little Menti. I'm going to share my screen. You can access the Menti through the link that I shared in the chat to get a sense of us as we are here in that group, and also for you to have the chance to reflect on today's session and the topic already. And I'm inviting everybody to participate also you as the speakers. And let us know if there's anything in terms of challenges that you have to access the Menti link. Otherwise, inviting you first to share from where you are calling in.
Are we supposed to see a map?
I think it was originally, but maybe that doesn't work because I had to copy paste the Menti to my account, Brandon.
Because the map is white in the back. If you change the background,
oh. Well,
we can use our imagination. Let's
yes,
go.
Yes,
exactly. And there, people are starting to do it. So imagine where you are on a map without seeing it.
I'll remember that for future workshops. let's see what happens. Of course, you can also share in the chat after. So
This is more beautiful. I think this is like when making mistakes create something wonderful that I'm going to use this in the future. Thanks, Yannick, for the mistake.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So as we see, we are very diverse in terms of where we are coming in from. And let's still move on to the next question. So it is also to get a sense, you can choose all that apply. I hope this one works now. As I said, there was some copy pasting in the background. So what applies to you? I'll just quickly hide the results. So it's just one icon that actually made it. And going to show in 3, 2, 1, go. So most of us are leading or coordinating a network or support networks of funders or something else. But it really seems like, that we have lots of experience actually in terms of networks, what networks are. And I guess in that sense, also understanding the need and maybe also the challenges around collective network mapping. Also to the one of you who is a philanthropic trustee or board member. And moving to the next question, which is when you hear collective network mapping, what comes to your mind? Any terms, ideas? Okay. Should have checked again, I guess, if the copy pasting. You can't see the results.
I think you have to press enter to show the answers. I see that at the bottom of the screen.
Oh,
there it is.
Yay. It's a miracle.
Oh, creative joy. I like that.
I like whiz bang.
Yeah, I just thought that
Whiz
one.
bang. Untapped possibilities. Participatory approaches will definitely be something. Graphics, colors, easy to understand information, those power dynamics, or to move from individual to collective. Paper instead of data-informed platforms. Also stands out a bit to me. Good old pen and paper. Kumu. And one more, inviting you to click send because we move to the the next question, which is, what would you like to take away from our time together here in that shared space today? Thoughts, insights from others, practical tips, tools, connections, new connections, methodology, tips, tools. Better world built with creative joy and love. Key instructions. Snacks. I think that one you have to supply for yourself. To push the edge of network mapping to catalyze real action. It's also the connection between digital representation and physical action. Deeper connection. Okay, thank you. And the last question is, what would you rather, dance or sing? It's not to promise that it's going to happen in that session today, but we are having that work festival. And if it's not happening today, then at least inviting you to incorporate it somehow throughout the day or the days to come. So it's a bit more dancing than singing. Okay. Well, thank you. And with this, I'll stop our Menti. And before we start the speaker presentations, I just invite you just to arrive here in that space again a bit more. We've seen what you're looking for. You may have seen who is going to speak, but before we dive in, inviting you, maybe you want to look around in that physical space, who is already here with you. And if you feel comfortable, I also invite you just to take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, and just tune in with yourself and doing a little mapping of your inner ecosystem. So probably in a bit, we will hear insights, methodologies, tips, tricks, you will meet people, but maybe just a few seconds for yourself and just tuning in what's present there. How's your inner landscape looking like? Check in with thoughts, maybe emotions, ideas, colors or images. And taking 2 or 3 more deep breaths. Also to transition from your personal space to our collective space. And maybe also before you start tuning in, is there something that you would still need, something you want to write down, a drink, a snack, something you would like to grab or out that you have throughout the session? Intention you want to set for yourself. And with this, we are transitioning to our speakers, which we are very, very excited to have here today with us. And what I would suggest, maybe, Carolina, you can put all the speakers in spotlight now for the coming 30 minutes. So each speaker has 5 minutes to share your mapping experience. You can also share briefly if you have any snippets or demos, and we ask you to stay within that 5 minutes because it's 6 of you, so that we each have the time to present our ideas. And also inviting you, to maybe also pick on some of the things that have been shared, practical tips, maybe also just experiences of what worked, maybe what didn't, but it's up to you. I will signal after 4 minutes that you have 1 minute left. So that's my signal. And then when the 5 minutes are up, I will raise my hand and invite you to then just nominate yourself who goes next. And starting with Oliver, because you're the first in the event description.
No problem. Hi, everybody. So yeah, I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about murmurations. So murmurations is an open protocol for data sharing, which helps synchronize data across different platforms. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about the problems that murmuration tries to solve and how it works, and then give you a quick intro into what we'll be covering in the breakout sessions. And so the main problem is that there are thousands of regenerative economy projects all over the world, but they are not necessarily open or interoperable. So their distributed nature means that they're often hard to find, and the data that they hold doesn't work with other data from other networks. So this distributed setup produces bespoke siloed data that is not easily shared, and which reduces opportunities for collaboration and computation between the networks. So that leads to duplication of data in different places and confusion about where to find the most authoritative sources of that data. So murmuration solves this problem of closed siloed data by providing a standardized format for sharing data and making data interoperable across platforms and networks. Why is that a good thing? Well, because it increases network effects. So as more networks join and share their data in compatible formats, the numbers of connections and collective value of the data increases exponentially, making the whole greater than the sum of its parts. So each node in Murmurations holds its profile data on its own server or a specialized data host, so that the data in Murmurations is largely decentralized. And an index keeps track of where all the profiles are stored, when they were last updated, and which schemas they match, making it quick and easy to look up profiles in the decentralized database. Then, every time a record is updated, the index can also be updated so that it has the latest data to support accurate searching. And then aggregators can query the index to find where the profiles are stored, visit the profiles directly, and then collect the data and present it on their maps or in their directories or whatever other kind of aggregator they want to build. Then aggregators can check with the index periodically to see if there's any new or updated profiles. So they only need to access specific entries in order to keep their data up to date. And then if a website disappears because the owner moves on but forgets to tell the index, then an aggregator will receive a 404 because profile is not found. So they know then to remove that entry from their listings. So Murmurations has a flexible approach to ontology, which enables data from different networks and vocabularies to be as interoperable as possible. And that enables aggregators to build sophisticated apps which support inter-network discovery and collaboration. So we're asking the question here today, how do we create maps to visualize and leverage the connections and opportunities across diverse stakeholders? Well, Murmurations' answer to that question is first, make the data interoperable. Then we can connect people to the data and the data to other data in all sorts of new and exciting ways. So during the breakouts, I'll demonstrate how to create and host and register a Murmurations profile with the index. And then I'll walk through the index explorer that we've built and the API, which everybody can use. And then demonstrate really quickly how we can build custom maps from data in the Murmurations index and embed them on your site in just a couple of minutes. And if there's time, I want to show you this new aggregator that we've built for groups and needs, which is basically a distributed offers and wants system. And that's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also perfectly on time. Who's next? Oliver.
In my list, Tom.
Hey everybody, thank you, Oliver. That's really cool. I'm loving geeking out on this stuff already, and it makes me want to make sure we can integrate what we're doing with Maptio with Murmurations. Would you mind just stopping your screen share so that I can share mine? Thank you so much.
Yeah, how do I do that?
It's done. It's already as if by magic.
There we go.
All right. So this is a quick view of Maptio, which is an open source tool, so you can get your hands dirty and download it yourself. And we also offer a hosted version to make it nice and easy if you want us to look after it for you. And where Maptio fits in, so when you want to visualize any sort of collective endeavor, obviously network diagrams are very popular for that, and that works in many cases. And other times you might feel like you want to represent the wholeness of something, like an organization or some kind of ecosystem, and then show the ever more specific subparts of that. So if ever that's a thing that feels useful to you, then Maptio could be a good choice. And I'll quickly show you how it works. I won't go into too much depth because of time. So very simply, you just build up this list on the left-hand side. So it's just a hierarchical list. And if you add a subcircle on here, let's add one now, new circle, and this will appear on the map. We can add more subcircles inside it. And then for every circle, you can start adding human beings to it. So Maptio is really designed for mapping, for making the humans in these initiatives very visible. So you can add a human being who might be leading a particular circle. You can add other people who are involved in it. If you want to specify even more specifically what it is that somebody is doing in a particular circle, like maybe the barista is making coffee. You can add people like that, and slowly a map comes to life. There's our new circle that we just added there. So the original use case for Maptio was a need that I had to be able to show how creative initiatives, so anything that humans work on to try and bring some sort of vision to life, how that vision deconstructs into the ever more specific things that are happening in service of that, and showing who's responsible for what and who else is helping with those things. But we decided to make Maptio just a very simple, flexible, more generic tool. So people use it to map all kinds of things. So there are a couple of other views that I can show you. This is the main map that we're looking at right now. There's also a more explorable view, because sometimes you might want to just be able to sort of click around and dig into different corners of the map. So that's what this view is for. It keeps everything closed and lets you dig ever deeper. You can see that in particular circles, you can add nice little colored tags to say something about what those things are. This version of the map can also be shared publicly. So if you want to put it on a public URL, you can enable this and you'll get a nice clean public view of the map that people can use. These can also be embedded on other websites as well. So there's a nice one here that Carolina built for the No Name Network Weaving Initiative. You can see they've got their Maptio map embedded right there on the page. So that's the public map. You can also we do have a network view. It's pretty simple, really. It just shows a link between it's a map of the humans who are involved, and it shows a connection between any humans who are in one or more circles together. You can also view a directory and see who's in each, where someone appears on the map. So I can click on myself and see all the circles that I'm a part of and what I'm up to. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of Maptio. A couple of other things to say before I wrap up very shortly. In the breakout groups, I'll give you some tips about how you can think about the map, like what pair of glasses to put on when you're mapping. And in particular, looking at the thing that you're mapping as a creative initiative, a process to realize a vision, and noting who is the author for which part of it is a particularly powerful lens, which I can tell you more about. If you don't get a chance to jump into the breakout, if you go to the help page in Maptio, you'll see we've got a free mapping masterclass. And then the last thing to say before we wrap up is, as well as being open source, we've decided to make Maptio have radically inclusive pricing. So if you try Maptio for 30 days on a hosted platform and you decide you like it, you'll come up with a very friendly page like this that gives you some suggestions of what you might pay depending on the type of initiative you are, including initiatives and individuals with very challenging finances, which said, we'll do everything we can to give you a free account. And so basically you just pick your own contribution, as much or as little as works for you, and you can subscribe, and you can also request the free account. I'm going to stop there because I'm out of time. Thank you. So who's next on my screen? How about Danielle? Do you want to go next?
Yes, hello, I'm Danielle Varda. I am the CEO and founder at Visible Network Labs. I'm also a professor at the University of Colorado, Denver in the School of Public Affairs. And I always add the mother of 3 spirited girls, because that is my hardest job. It's good to be here today. I will share my screen, and one moment. I'm going to share 2 things. One is just a little bit about us. So I run this company called Visible Network Labs, and our goal is to make invisible networks visible. We're a social enterprise, and our mission, my mission started out just doing evaluation and measurement of how network interventions lead to outcomes, especially health, mental health, and wellness improvements. But now we have a real general mission of supporting and strengthening social connectedness at the individual and systems level. And we do this through providing technology. I'll show this to you in a moment, but also learning as trainings and workshops. And our hope is to provide these opportunities for collaborative innovation within communities. We have 2 different products on our platform. Our platform is called Partner. generally what we're doing is people need to track their relationships over time. Most people are doing this with a CRM of some sort or spreadsheets. And so we've tried to provide a tool that allows them to do ecosystem data tracking and learning over time using the partner CPRM. Our two products are Partner Me, which allows folks to look at the individual network and primarily social support systems of people, and then integrate the knowledge of whether they are at risk of adverse social connectedness into their care, like their healthcare or coaching or social work. And then the CPRM is a community partner relationship management system, which uses very traditional social network analysis within it. I'll show it to you, just a little background on it. I started doing this work, like I said, in my dissertation, just to look at research, and then realized I was a technologist at heart and used the, decided, can I build a tool that communities could use that take this kind of complex science and puts it into their hands in the most simple way? So my goal has always been to build the capacity of communities to do this work. And I became a technologist. I have been a technologist. I didn't know that until I started building technology. And I'll show you the platform in the breakout. I'm happy to go into way more depth on it. This is just a picture of our Partner Me tool. I'm not going to talk about that today, but it's something I'm actually just quite proud of. But what I will show you is so this is our partner platform. I just wanted to say a few things before I get into this. We have learned a few things. We work with community. And so you'll see within here, the option is going to be now our data infrastructure has changed quite a bit over the years. When I built this, it was an Excel spreadsheet using Visual Basic and macros. And people used it like crazy, and we needed to improve it. So over the years, I started Visible Network Labs 5 years ago, and we've just changed it to be this online platform. But it's set up as an ecosystem, networks of networks kind of tracking. So this is my demo site, but you can imagine these could each be different networks, but at the ecosystem level, you can track everything all together. And then this breaks it out within each of these areas. So I'll go into these. I'm just going to show you very briefly the way that the platform works here. But we have a survey tool that you can use to build out question sets. And within this, I'm so sorry, I've had a cold for days. Within this, we have all kinds of question banks and different ways that people can build out surveys and ask questions. We have a manage members section, which just lists all of the members of the ecosystem. I loved the circles. We don't have them as circles. And within those, if you click on these little eyeballs, you see the actual member profiles, which is a way that we've been able to use the data as a way that respondents can see it and get it back. So this is like a gift back to someone for answering a survey, for example. We have an email system in there. Of course, the absolute best part is the Explore Results area, where we have network mapping, GIS mapping. We have just scores, graphs, and charts, and all kinds of different ways to see the data. All of the question sets appear over here. So it's a whole start to finish process of putting data in, seeing it all in these different ways to analyze it, creating reports. And our goal has been to translate the data into practice for people. So we focus on strong, reliable measures. We know if the measurement coming in is poor, the data coming out is poor. We're very focused on the democratization of data and how to give it back to communities and make it public to them. And the last thing I will just say is we've focused very hard on being community engaged. And so all of our approaches use a community engaged participatory approach and human-centered design. And so we've just worked with communities all over the world. We have thousands of people who use this every day, and I'm really excited to share more.
Thank you, Danielle. And then I'll just hand it over to you, Ben.
Thank you. So unlike the previous presenters, I'm not the developer of software. I'm a user of mapping software, in particular the software Duo of Kumu to display data and SumApp to collect it. And for those of you, I'm sure, Narayan may be speaking about this similarly. We met through the very active community practice that Greater Than the Sum organizes for SumApp. Here's their website, greaterthanthesum.com. And this software was created essentially to solve a problem that existed with network mapping in Kumu. Kumu being a super flexible tool for displaying network data and analyzing it. And what they really wanted, the SumApp folks, was a way to source connection data from the network. So you can get profile data easily in a spreadsheet or survey and upload it into Kumu, and then Kumu lets you decorate and display that data, super flexibly. But if you want people to say who they're connected to in a network, that you can't do simply in a spreadsheet, because you have to have the list of all the other nodes that are on the network that people might create connections to, right? So SumApp created this back end that lets you do that. Here's a little example. So you can go into there and you see connections, and here are all the different people that are on a particular map, and you can click on them and have a customizable survey then that says something about your connections. Now, I came at this as somebody who was a convener of dialogue. And the first maps that I made were for the Now What Global Gathering that had 7 editions. It kind of popped up roughly every 6 months for 2.5 years or 3.5 years, starting in 2019. And we wanted, because it was mostly a virtual gathering, we actually used the SumApp platform as the way for people to register for Now What, and to get some visibility on the whole, because these things would last like 5-6 weeks. And, there might be 100 or 200 participants in some of the more active ones, but nobody was showing up all the time. And so when we started using this mapping tool, all of a sudden people had a sense of, wow, there's a there that's much bigger than what I thought. And the other thing, we started using it traditionally to show who's connected to whom, and you get this kind of hairball effect, right? That many of you may have seen. And there was a question of just sort of how useful is it to know all that? I mean, it's nice because you can click in on a particular person in Kumu and then focus on them, and then it's a little more manageable with the data. But even so, if you're not trying to do network data analysis and more to just sort of see the structure of a network, I think we're all so interconnected, really, that a lot of maps of the kinds of convenings and networks that I'm working with are going to look like giant hairballs. And the fact that people on the outside aren't connected is probably as much a function of them just not having gotten in and added the data as it is that they're not really connected. So that led me to look at things a little differently. And you'll see there's a bunch of orange lines in here. So those were a hack on some app, and those are not showing where somebody's connected, but saying, I want to meet you. I want to make a connection with you. And so as a convener, that's where things have evolved more. Here's a more recent map from the Bioregional Regeneration Summit that I helped organize. It had about 1,000 participants. And again, in the registration, we asked people, did they want to be on the map? And also, did they want to put a partner initiative on the map, or an organization that would partner in the summit and help promote it? So those are the blue squares. So we got very high participation in that. And then what we asked people was not who you were connected to, but who you would like to be connected to, whether it's somebody you already know, or, and want to just reconnect with, or someone you'd like to meet. And that created the connections you see in this map. So we got a lot of activity of people, talking about who they would like to connect with. And you can actually, you can find yourself on the map, for example, and click on the connections itself and see data from a customized survey. So here's Annalika to your own, saying that they deepen an existing relationship and talking about the gifts received from that. So we also mapped appreciations here. It was both requests for connection and then also appreciations for connections made. You can, Kumu lets you filter in a lot of different ways. The next evolution for this was to say, well, how do we use this to stimulate more connecting and more dialogue beyond just tagging people saying you want an invitation? And so that led to this follow-up initiative. Whoops, that's not the one I wanted to show. To the summit, sort of saying, let's organize small group conversations and make use of the energy. It's by 5 minutes that had emerged from the summit. And so that's been an ongoing initiative over the past few months. And all of these red pentagons or conversations that have happened based on the energy we were able to detect and map and surface in the summit. And you can see who participated and also themes that these conversations cluster around. So I can say lots more in the breakout. Thanks. Stop share there.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ben. And handing over to you, Yannick.
Pleasure. Yeah, first of all, thank you everyone for your presentation so far. I'm really enjoying the diversity of approaches and seeing all the progress that's happening. I guess many of us are, well, sort of familiar with some of the things that are happening in the mapping space. I'm sharing on behalf of GaiaNet today. Let me make that big. There we go. Who's on a purpose to connect and unite the builders of the new Earth. And I'll get into a little bit more detail what exactly that means. It's focusing on regenerative projects and projects with a social purpose to get to the core of it. And GaiaNet has a background as a network weaving organization, which they've done so far a lot through personal network weaving, so personal connections, and masterminds, so a very human-based approach to weaving, and was looking at how do we use a mapping tool to sort of facilitate some of these efforts to make these efforts better. And we ran into a problem, or like we were wondering why exactly are mapping tools not the standard in society at the moment, when there's a lot of competition with social media that doesn't really have the same approach to finding relevant information that a lot of mappers are going into the space with. So they're looking much more at how do we sort and find the most relevant information. And after talking to a lot of technologists, as in mappers, users of mapping tools, and the projects that we're most interested in serving, regenerative projects and socially impactful projects, we found that there's a lack of an efficient and engaging system to match needs with available resources that really stops some of the co-creation happening at the end of the users, so that they don't really find where the value is and how to get into co-creation with the people that they really want to collaborate with. And basically decided that there's a critical need for more purposeful and holistic social network mapping, where we foster alignment, engagement, and efficient resource utilization for co-creation and that final value exchange. And there's two ways we do that. One is what I mentioned before, is that there's a human component here that we're focused on very much, and that's on the side of facilitation, where we use human source services to support the matchmaking and co-creation process. So that's we have a call center support line for need clarification, to get focused on what you actually need and sharing those needs for warm introductions to people who could match with that need. We're trying to create incentives for weavers to connect people with each other, and we have programs for co-creation facilitation, where then relevant matches get brought together and go through a self-organized co-creation process. And we're trying to integrate that with what we call network navigation, which is our solution to this information overload mess, and how do we find what's actually relevant to what we actually need. And we're basing this on a taxonomy of needs and gifts, indicators of co-creation, so that you know, well, where are these organizations right now? Are they at a level where my value is actually useful to them, and that we could have a collaboration? And new Earth values, so measurements of transparency, of regenerative practices, of social purpose, like how purposeful is an organization, which we're still developing. This is a long process. And we're developing this with Catalyst on what we call the GaiaNet ecosystem map inside of Catalyst, who you might be familiar, catalyst.network. and they have a very interesting approach to interoperability that I'll go into more detail in the breakout rooms with you. And they also have a lot of integration with other platforms. So you can see here is a map view of the data. You also have different views of the data where you can filter for exactly what you're looking for. It's integrated with Kumu. It has a similar approach as SumApp in terms of the data collection. So it's a very holistic approach, and I'm looking to get your input on how to make that experience, that human experience of using mapping tools even better, so we can design something for the network weavers essentially. So that's it. And I look forward to seeing all of you in the breakout room. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have Nariam going next, please.
Thank you. And I'm going to not share any slides whatsoever. Although I love seeing maps. When I see a map, for me, it connects something. Like my brain does this weird thing where I can picture myself zooming in and standing amongst all of these different nodes and almost in a felt sense kind of way, feeling the connections between all of the different edges or relationships and lines. And I think I'm kind of weird like that. Like, I don't know why my brain does that, but I think that's part of why I love network mapping. I'm interested in collective consciousness. I came into mapping as, holy cow, there's a tool that seems to allow a group to see itself. And that's part of what I understand collective consciousness to mean. I guess another definition would be something like where the whole of an organization or a system really integrates and values each of its parts. And at the same time, each different part of this system or group sees the whole and feels value in being a part of the whole. And they see how they relate to each other. And it's in this seeing that creates this emergent phenomenon of consciousness. And I haven't really seen many things that I would actually describe as collectively conscious, or at least not in the way that I think could become or is possible. And so I'm still quite excited about maps and what they have to offer to groups and to individuals who want to feel more of a sense of belonging, to see how they fit into a larger picture. And to me, that feels really close to meaning making, which John Vervaeke would describe meaning making as relevance realization, or this process of seeing how something is relevant to another. If I'm a part of a larger whole, how am I as a part relevant to this whole? And how is that whole relevant to me? And so when I create a map, it's this group process often. Well, actually not as much as it should be. Sometimes it's just me saying, I want to see how I'm relevant and I want to see how everyone else is relevant. And then when I bump into them in the hallway, I can share a little bit more about how I see them interconnected with things. And that also sort of gives this hit of belonging. Oh, somebody sees me. I have a role here. But anyways, when I do a mapping process with a large group or organization, the value is in the process for me. There's a way in which how we map is a reflection of our own thinking, or some way of expressing how we see ourselves to be situated in context. I don't see these maps as existing in an objective universe somewhere. There's not, this is a specific network. And maybe it's because I work with more organic networks with non-defined boundaries, where maybe the whole world is actually in this network. Maybe my network, I'm trying to map people who want to create a better world, and that actually includes every human and organization on the planet. But how do I think about this? I can't just sort of fuzz out all of these edges. So when I create a map, it's somewhat akin to creating art or writing. It's a reflection of my subjective understanding of what's going on. And when I invite other people into that process with me, it's something like making a collaborative art project. It changes a subjective experience into an intersubjective experience. And the possibility, there's a joy found in this mapping. So my work tends to bridge complexity theory, systems thinking, adult development. And it looks at how participating in these kinds of processes actually change the way that we can see the world. And the maps that we make with a group of people also reflect the thinking of that group of people. So I can use it as an indicator of how far are we along into this sort of collective consciousness journey. If it's easeful for us to make this beautiful shared map and everyone goes, yeah, that's it, that's the thing, this is us, I see myself here, I see the whole, that to me is an indicator that we're somewhat closer to collective consciousness. But when it's nitty and gritty and we can't really do it, and that's not how it is, that's not the right question, we shouldn't be bringing our attention to here. Can we visualize it differently? For us to go through the process of answering those questions and to create that map together is this smoothing out and this journey towards this sort of collective consciousness. So that's what I want to nerd out about. And in a breakout room, we could actually go through this process together rather than just talking philosophy.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all so much, Oliver, Tom, Danielle, Ben, Yannick, Narayan, for your inputs. And yeah, as was said, we will transition into breakouts in a bit. I'm very happy that I don't have to decide on which one to go. And before we do that, I actually invite all of us to just do a little stretching. So it's probably not dancing, but at least it's a bit of movement. So maybe you want to just rub your hands and our hands that we use so much, and then just do a stretching or something that feels good also for your body, and also let sink in what has been shared with you in terms of methodologies, tech solutions, other insights. Just let it sink in. And with this, I'll hand over to Carolina.
Okay, great. Thank you, Yannick, and thank you to everyone. It was really great to see such a wealth of different approaches to mapping and different tools. So the way that this is going to work now, it's expo style. So we're going to have one breakout per presenter, and you can actually choose and move yourself into the breakout you're interested in. And you're going to have 2 rounds. So you give yourself a little minute to think about which platforms or which approaches to mapping you want to engage with. And we'll have around 12 to 15 minutes per breakout. And the way that this works is I'm going to open the breakouts now so that that I can explain how to move yourself into them in case you haven't done this before. So the rooms are now open. So you should be able to see on your Zoom screen at the bottom, you would have either something that says breakout rooms in whatever language you're using Zoom in, or you should see 3 dots if you don't immediately see breakout rooms. And when you see the 3 dots, you will have the breakout rooms option there in the list. And when you click on that, you will find a list of the presenters and their topics. So just click join to whichever room you would like to go in now. And if you actually need any help, please let me know. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute and I will help you move into a room. Okay, it's go time. So first round starts now. Go play.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back from the second breakout. And yeah, now we would all be curious to at least hear a few insights. And before we open up the floor, also an invitation for the speakers to share your resources, the links to your websites. I see it partly has happened so that people can stay connected and engaged. And Carolina also just posted in general, if you want to stay connected with the Network Festival, then you can check out the link or also upcoming events that we posted there. And now opening the floor, and there are 3 guiding questions, and we only have like a few minutes, like 5 minutes. So it's only really hearing from a few of you in terms of, is there something that surprised you, something you want to try out, or something you're grateful for? And whoever feels called You just said earlier it's popcorn style. It's not Gangnam style, but if you want to dance, you can still do a popcorn style. If you want to just respond to one of those questions. Yes, Danielle.
I just I wanted to say thank you. The people who are here today are very inspiring, and the work that everyone is doing just blows my mind. So thank you for spending a moment to do introductions and share a little bit about yourself. So I really appreciated that in our sessions.
I just wanted
you.
to say
Yes.
general thank you, and yeah, it was really insightful and exciting to hear about all the different people and their projects.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much. And it's a lot to work on and to learn. And that's great, but I hope that we all have time. Thank you so much.
Good old time, yes. And curious to hear a few more voices, and maybe there is something that you actually want to try out in case you would have time, or potentially you can integrate it in things that you anyway plan to do. So if some of you have any ideas, something they want to try out.
I just want to thank the FIDO network and all of those of you who are facilitating and designing. I mean, you all have just done an awesome job of unearthing these resources, and I'm just delighted by that. And I know through Carolina how much work it is. So yes, it's all. Just want to give that deep appreciation for the vision and your implementation. That's an unusual combination.
Yeah, likewise, just echo the thanks for the opportunities here. Was passed this on by a colleague, and so kind of registered yesterday for an event today, which happens to be at 1 in.the morning, but I'm so glad I did. The only unfortunate thing is the limited number of breakouts I could go to. Would love to go to all of them, but Danielle, thank you very much for the prezzo. Yeah, I love the idea of surveys feeding into network maps and building out the repository. Great vision for that. And Oliver, the idea around decentralized networks and that interoperability of data between multiple networks. Love it, and really hope to see where we can take that. So thank you very much. Well done.
I just wanted to appreciate Marianne for the playfulness of approaching network and consciousness. It helps to remind ourselves where where we can find joy and juice.
Now I really want to see a network map of all the people in the festival. If anyone cares to make one. Would be super.
We thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
We thought about it. Yeah,
yes.
It's also a resource question. They actually thought about mapping experiences and stories throughout the network, and then also people, but putting stories in the center. Maybe there's still something happening. Yeah. And also, I can only say, because I mean, also to say, I'm personally not working for the FIDO team, but we are a festival, right? And also as you, as the speakers, willing to just come here, contribute. Also, a big appreciation that you basically all stayed on time. I know how rare that is, and as facilitator, how much we appreciate that as well. And at the same time, just bringing in your hearts and your minds, your ideas, all of you. So a big thank you for that. And as we are transitioning out, thank you, Tom, also for sharing. I'm just seeing in the chat. You can all share if there's anything else coming up on your site, any event, a project that you would like to share about, just pop it in the chat. You can write personal messages as well to people that you would like to stay connected to. Just share an email, a LinkedIn. And as we do that, I'll just also play a bit of background music. And let me see. So you should not see my screen now, I hope.
Says you're sharing your sound.
Good. So that's some background music. And as I said, feel invited, share any reflections still. You can unmute yourselves. Any further links and resources, pop it in the chat. And there is one specific call to action, not sure if it is in the chat already, which is the needs and offers board of the Network Festival. So it's a Google Sheet where you can add like 3 things that you offer and 3 things that people can reach out for. Personally, I already made use of it, and we'll meet actually with one of you who's also joining here today. We can only encourage you to make use of that sheet as well. Thank you, Carolina. It's in the chat now. Love support. And no more rules. You can also just unmute before you leave, say goodbye.